Good afternoon. Attendees are entering our session, so I will start slowly with our workshop. Our Zero BRINE workshop as part of the Zero BRINE project. The project is nearing its end, so during the Amsterdam International Water Week there will be also some final discussions and presentations. So people are also invited for that session, of course, during the Amsterdam International Water Week. Also good to notify that the session will be recorded. So if you only would like to listen, then it's okay. But we hope you also actively participate in the discussions. It's a workshop, and it's supposed to be an interactive workshop. So during the discussions, feel free to interact and use the chat to give your opinions. We also have some polls to facilitate interaction. And if you want to speak, it's possible. We can unmute you, but of course, then you need to make yourself known via the chat that you would like to speak. I still see some people entering the workshop. So the workshop about creating acceptance for circularity, where we discuss some issues, some important aspects that are needed for driving circularity, and 3 pillars like technological infrastructure, sustainability impact, and the supporting business models. That are topics that we will discuss today. My name is Kees Roest. I'm a senior scientific researcher in the Energy and Circular Systems team of KWR Water Research Institute. And from KWR, I'm also seconded as Program Director, Industrial Fluids Processing of the Institute for Sustainable Process Technology. And this Institute for Sustainable Process Technology, ISPT, is part of the Zero BRINE project. So I'm the overall host of today. But the discussion that we will have about social acceptance, the business models, and the sustainability assessments will be led by Professor Patricia Ossemeyer. She's of the TU Delft, of the Biotechnology and Society section, and also coordinating a related project of Zero BRINE called water mining. So really involved in the topic, and that's also reflected because Patricia Ossemeyer is in the advisory board of the Zero BRINE project. And the panelists for the discussion are Gijsbert Korevaar, and he will give also quite soon a sort of background about the sustainability assessment, and Julia Calabretta, Associate Professor of Strategic Value and Design of Delft University, and also Gijsbert Korevaar is of Delft University, Assistant Professor, Industrial Symbiosis. And later on they will speak and they can introduce themselves a little bit more. Before we start, again, the reminder that this session will be recorded and that it's an interactive session. So I already see that some people use the chat. Also, George Salidis also has been working in the Zero BRINE project before. So welcome to you as well, and all the others. It's time to start with the workshop, I would say. And I try to move the slide, but I can't at the moment. Because in the background we also have Revolve. And Danielle, can you give me permission to move the slides, or can you move the slide?
Can you try pressing the space bar? Did it work?
Did not work yet.
You might have to request for remote control, Kees.
I made you a co-host, but
Last time
I
it
think
worked
if you
quite.
press remote control at the bottom.
I'm afraid I don't see this.
Okay, 1 second.
So this is the second workshop we have about social acceptance. The first workshop was quite nice, and I had remote control somehow. Okay. Now it works, thanks. So this is the program of today, so welcome. We started of this interactive workshop. Then we will start with some videos about the Zero Brine project as introduction to the Zero Brine project, and about the technologies that are used to recover resources from concentrated brine streams. And after that, Gijsbert Korevaar will introduce us more to the sustainability assessments related to the Zero Brine project. And then we will have the discussion, the interactive discussion led by Patricia about social acceptance, where sustainability, business models, technology, and other aspects will be discussed. And we really would like your opinions as well, your ideas, and your interaction. So we have some polls, but also feel free to use the chat to facilitate the discussion. And you can also request permission to speak, so you can ask your questions or give your input to the discussion. So I already introduced the speakers. So that's depicted here. You also see the photos, and later on you will see the live videos. And then I think it's time to go to the videos of the pilots, of 2 pilots in the Zero Brine project.
Every year, nearly 4 million tons of salt are discharged to Poland's rivers, mostly from coal mining. This brine negatively impacts freshwater resources and their ecosystems. It is costly for mining companies to manage and causes agricultural and other industry losses of up to 200 million euros per year.
Traditionally, the coal mining was interested primarily in coal, but everything else was just waste. And now, with the technologies like Zero Brine, we can actually turn some of this waste into another source of income.
At the Bolesław Siemiały coal mine, Zero Brine uses a combination of technologies to extract valuable products from brine. After pre-treatment with ultrafiltration and decarbonization, the wastewater goes through 2-pass nanofiltration, splitting the brine into 2 streams: a salt-rich permeate and a calcium and magnesium-rich retentate. Bypassing this retentate through Unipa's proprietary CREAM crystallizer, magnesium hydroxide can be recovered, which is a valuable commodity in the refractory materials industry, while the remaining calcium-rich solution of the retentate can be used as a de-icing liquid.
The nanofiltration permeate is then concentrated in a hybrid reverse osmosis electrodialysis system, producing demineralized water of a quality close to distilled water that can be reused at a nearby power plant, and a highly saline concentrate that can be sourced for salt crystallization, while the diluate can be reused in the treatment process.
Zero Brine technology can reduce salt releases to fresh water by 92.8% and cut CO2 emissions by 340 kilograms of CO2 per ton of salt. The technology reduces energy consumption by 33% compared to the reference technology. Recovering 90.6% demi-water and high-purity salt, magnesium hydroxide and gypsum for resale present possibilities for new revenue streams.
The coal mining water in many mines is very similar to the seawater. So the desalination industry would be very interested in the results of this project. And desalination is already a very important field of business for many countries, especially in the Mediterranean region.
So that's about the Polish pilot, and then we also have a short video about the pilot in Spain.
En Industrias Químicas del Ebro llevamos más de 60 años de investigación y desarrollo y apostamos por nuevos proyectos de innovación con los que seguir optimizando nuestros modelos y procesos. Cada día nos hacemos nuevas preguntas y trabajamos para ser mejores y más sostenibles, encaminando nuestros pasos hacia una economía circular. Para una de estas preguntas, hemos encontrado la respuesta. Esta planta piloto de Ike es un proyecto de investigación europeo, con el que pretendemos dos objetivos paralelos. Por un lado, recuperar las sales que actualmente se encuentran en nuestros vertidos para reutilizarlas. Y por otro, aislar un agua ultrapura para usarla en nuestros procesos industriales. Os cuento en qué consiste. El vertido entra a la planta a través de un primer filtro que excluye todos los sólidos que puede contener. El resultado es un líquido con un alto contenido salino que se almacena en un tanque. De aquí se vuelve a filtrar, pasando por unas membranas de ultrafiltración donde se eliminan los metales pesados y las sales contaminantes. En la planta piloto solo hay una. En el equipo real contaríamos con varias membranas conectadas entre sí. El líquido resultante es el que alimenta la planta de ósmosis, donde pasará por otras membranas modificadas químicamente para que sean selectivas al tipo de sales que queremos aislar. Se ejerce una presión sobre el líquido para limpiar el agua de iones y separar una parte donde quedan concentradas todas las sales. El agua limpia es un agua ultrapura, que reciclaremos para nuestros procesos industriales y así captaremos menos agua del pozo. La otra parte es una concentración salina que someteremos a una leve evaporación para extraer el sulfato sódico. Este sulfato puede ser utilizado para un nuevo producto de Ike, para su venta o para reutilizarlo en los procesos químicos.
So, okay, that gives some background about the Zero Brine project, the technologies and the pilots that have been executed, and how components from brine streams can be recovered. And now Gijsbert Korevaar will speak more about sustainability assessment and quality standards. So Gijsbert, go ahead. I hope you can get control of the slides.
Well, I just asked for it, Kay, so I'm happy that I got permission to move the slide. So that's very good. So good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to address you about this Zero Brine project. And well, the technical details and basically the background of the Zero Brine projects have been also already introduced by the videos. Well, this is me. I already see in the participants list, there's a couple of people that already know me from both research and education, but for the others, my background is in the Faculty of Technology, Policy and Management in TU Delft. I have a background in chemical engineering, but I also worked a lot on sustainability, circular economy, and industrial symbiosis. And those are also topics that I want to highlight very quickly today. because today is about the social acceptance of zero brine. The social acceptance for us belongs to the sustainability. I start with this slide here, because if you talk about sustainability, then that actually comes in several levels. You could start with a process change level 1, and so, well, go all the way up to a level 4 system change improvement. What we like to achieve in this zero brine project is really a system change. And in order to do so, we have to work on the technology, but we also have to work on the infrastructure. We have to work on the sustainability aspects in a broad range, not only the environmental impact, but also the social impact and the economic impact. And one way to do that is through a topic that we call industrial symbiosis. Industrial symbiosis is really key in the zero brine project. It has been highlighted from the start in the project description, and also during the project we have always taken this idea central. And industrial symbiosis basically means that several industries work together to achieve sustainability. And you already could see that in the videos, as explained for Poland and for Spain. In both examples, there is already a correlation and basically a connection between several industries to achieve a better performance in terms of water management and also sustainability management and carbon footprint and so on. And that industrial symbiosis idea is also closely connected to circular economy. So formally, Zero Brine is a project that is an innovation action in circular economy. Now, people could debate, of course, is working on water, is that actually circular economy? Because water circulates itself. So why should we actually do something on that? Well, in the Zero Brine, there is, of course, this key idea that, of course, the water is not only the water itself, it also contains minerals and other material, and that is recovered. And so there's a recovery of resources and minerals in the Zero Brine project, and that is also part of the circular economy, and that also comes, you could say, with this industrial symbiosis. Now, this slide gives a very quick overview, although there's a lot of information on it, but yeah, we do that a bit quickly today. So if you have questions about it, you can also come back later in discussion, or you can address me. But this slide gives a quick overview on how these ideas of industrial symbiosis and circular economy and sustainability are all related to each other. Now, in order to achieve sustainability in this project, we not only have a good idea, because we like to work from industrial symbiosis and we have circular economy, but we also have to measure that. I think that's also key to sustainability. It's not only an intention, but you also should, in the end, measure and monitor whether the sustainability has been achieved. Now, that's why this project is very, well, you could say heavily loaded even with quality standards. There's all kinds of quality standards in it to make sure that sustainability is not only a nice story, but that it also really, well, is proven to become better during the project time. So what we do is we do environmental and economic assessments, basically through traditional LCAs and life cycle costing methods. We also combine that with the social impacts, and then we call it the life cycle sustainability assessment. We do ecological impact measurements, meaning that we literally measure the water quality at the exit points of the industry, so that in that sense, ecological impacts are different from environmental impacts. Again, a nuance that perhaps can be discussed later, but the ecological impacts are literally measured by taking water samples. And we also look for basically the impact of this project on policy for water policy and circular economy in the European context. Now, that all is together taken into reports that is project issues at the end. So, what we also did is that if you look at basically the materials that are recovered in Zero Brine, we have defined and set, basically the possible uses and applications of these minerals, where they are positioned in industry, so that we really could say, it's possible to recover the materials we have quality standards on them, and we could then use and sell them to other industries in the system. So industrial symbiosis in practice. So you find all these details on the slides, but again, that's not something that I read out. So what the project in the end will deliver is all kinds of different reports and designs that are in the reports that basically show the life cycle assessment outcomes, the life cycle sustainability assessment outcomes, environmental impacts, and also the policy briefs that come out of that. Now, that is a very quick overview to show you that this is a project that is in the end about water treatment and recovery of minerals, but it also has really achieved a lot in terms of how to keep control of the sustainability in that project. And that is why the quality standards are very essential to the idea of zero brine. Thank you for your attention.
So now we move on to the discussion about social acceptance, and Patricia Osseweyer will take the lead. So please go ahead, and we have enough time for discussion, hopefully.
Okay, thank you very much, Kees, and thank you, Gijsbert, for your contribution to explaining actually what circular economy means and how that was done in Zero Brine. So let me first ask to the participants whether there are questions. Questions for clarification, or maybe an opinion, or maybe an agreement with something. And then if you have questions, it would be good if you would raise your hand, which you can find at the bottom of your screen. There's a raise hand option, or put your question in the chat. That's another possibility where we can see who would like to have the floor and who would like to say something. Well, if everything is clear, then we have a raised hand. That is fantastic. Arjen Lettinga, can somebody give him yes, I think you are able to speak. Yes, hello.
Yes, hello. My name is Arjen. Yes, I am a great believer of the circular economy, but I was wondering to what extent it is very important also to explain to people in general what the actual linear economy is about, because I think that is quite crucial. Instead of talking about only something new, that we also emphasize the fact that we live currently in the linear economy and that we are making the linear economy more sustainable, which is a good start. But if once people understand that, I think they also better understand the transition towards the circular economy.
I think that's a very nice question. Thank you very much, Arjen. Can I ask where you're from?
Where I'm from? You mean where I live or where
you work?
I currently work in the field of education, but I used to work for 15 years in the field of innovation within the corporate context of Deloitte. Okay.
That's very nice. So you have a lot of experience in here. That's good to hear. So Gijsbert, can I ask you to respond to this, give your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Arjen, for this comment. And I definitely will agree with you that, let's say, we have a planning for this workshop, and we always had the idea of we do this quickly because we like to have a discussion. And I think this is a great start of the discussion. And that is, so I haven't mentioned anything about a linear economy, but I totally agree with you. And it's even very practical in this case. So what happens actually right now, with the minerals that we recover from the water in the zero brine case, if you, for example, take the Rotterdam situation, which is very close to us, then there's a couple of minerals that we simply import from far away, like magnesium. We transport it to the Netherlands, we use it, we basically get lost and we lose it in the water. And then it's at this moment, it simply goes to the sea, meaning that the linear economy is literally taking minerals from somewhere else and dump it in the sea after use. And what we do in the zero brine technology is that we recover those minerals, and that makes it a very interesting case study because we avoid the transport to the Netherlands of these minerals. We use them in a much more efficient way, and we also avoid the environmental impact. So in that sense, the circular economy is a little translation of basically the avoidance of all these different steps in the supply chain that has environmental impact. And it's true, I could have, and we could have started by telling that this is the current situation of the minerals in the Netherlands, and this is our proposal to do that better. But yeah, we started with telling how we already can improve. But it's certainly a good remark to remind us of, again, of the situation that we're coming from.
And did you also mean that we should, that we should have this type of explanation from what is a linear economy and what is a circular economy in broader communication efforts?
Yes, I think I'm not sure if I'm still unmuted, but I think absolutely,
you are.
yes, I think that I think that would really help in getting the awareness, in increasing the awareness.
Okay, well, I think you have a good point, and we will take this on board. Yep. So is there anything, Julia, that you would like to say to this? You need to be unmuted then.
Yeah, so just, hey, Arjen, good to see you here.
Yes.
We have been working together for a while, so yeah. I take care of developing a business model for Zero Brine, for one of the areas, for the Rotterdam areas, and there indeed we in our discussion tool that facilitates the discussion, actually we have a part where we explain, where we try to pull out and explain what makes a certain business model circular, and we have it that precisely for the type of reasoning that you're making. So also stakeholders involved in the creation of the business model and in the consortium need to understand what is the difference between how they do things before or currently and what will make their activities circular. So I think it's a very good remark and something that we implicitly take already into account in the business part.
Well, it's actually a very nice bridge to the first polling question that we have, because for the benefit of the discussion, we have put some statements together, and we would like to share these statements and ask you to agree or not agree, or to fill in your answer, which we can then share. That's anonymized, and then of course, and then we can open the discussion about what you think about these statements. Now, for the first statement, I will go to in fact the tension between the economic benefits and the environmental impact in a circular project, because that's partly related to going from linear to circular. So I'll put the question there, and you can agree or disagree with the statement: the economic benefits in a circular project are more effective than legislation in steering acceptance for circularity. So please fill in your answer. Okay, 73% has answered it, and now 80%, so we're getting there. Okay, I will end the poll and share the results. And the results, as can be seen here, I hope you can see it now, is that 67% agrees and 33% disagrees with this statement. And the statement being that the economic benefits in a circular project are more effective than legislation in steering acceptance for circularity. So we're talking about steering acceptance for circularity. And you could do that indeed by showing economic benefits, or actually feeling economic benefits, or by legislation. Now, can I ask one of the people who agreed to this statement to say something about that? Again, raise your hand or put your question in the chat. There's Case is explaining this. Also could be interesting to know why certain persons are in doubt about the agree and disagree, of course. So anybody who's in doubt whether to agree or to disagree can share their doubts with us. Or is there anybody who disagreed, who would like to share why they disagree? I can, so perhaps George Salidis, can you say something about what you voted for and why? Then you need access, of course, to the microphone.
Access has been given.
Great. So George, are you able to say something about this? Well, maybe not. Maybe George is doing other things. Well, in that case, Julia, can I ask you to say something about this statement and your doubt, perhaps, about making this statement and agreeing and disagreeing with it?
Yeah, so I'm in doubt. So I think my answer. Well, I made this. Fundamentally, I agree with this statement, and I think that the power of having some economic alignment among the members of the consortium, or achieving this throughout a project is the main driver of a circular collaboration, and something that it can be controlled from the consortium much more than the legislation. So in Rotterdam, we have the case of currently the business model as we thought it's not gonna work, and legislation would really help in pushing more acceptance for the project. But we cannot really control legislation, and that is not forthcoming. So the most powerful way of pushing this collaboration and of finding new ways of making it accepted and to facilitate the implementation of the technology is a clear definition of a business model that everyone agrees upon and that everyone finds beneficial. So I think the reason why I agree with this statement is mainly because the business aspects are more in control of the consortium itself. So the consortium, if the collaboration really believes in a circular economy project, then working towards an economic benefits can give them more control. On the other hand, yeah, it seems that policy making and legislation can be, well, it's really forcing people to commit. So when the legislation is in favor of the circular economy, then it's a really powerful tool. But then one might wonder, are we really, well, changing the mindset of the people involved in the collaboration is an important thing for the overall success. Is that something that legislation can achieve? So if we let legislation steer, are we really creating acceptance? Are we really steering that mindset change that is necessary for the implementation? So these are my thoughts on this statement.
Yeah, in a way, circularity increases the complexity of doing business, because you have to also think of selling parts of your circular of your byproducts of your value chain, and in that sense, it becomes also more difficult to develop that market, to see how you can do that, etc. And often people think it's costly, therefore, but is it really costly? I mean, you say here the economic benefits of a circular project are more effective, but what is the experience in Zero Brine? Is there really cost effectiveness in the models that you worked on?
No, and that's actually the cost benefits are one of the most critical elements in the current business models, because I will explain a bit the business model as it is, but I briefly explain. So the technology is it's a modular technology that is made of different pieces that needs to be installed, and that's a very expensive process. So the setup and the starting up of the technology is expensive, and the brines that you get out of those are not necessarily do not necessarily generate the revenues that one might expect. But I think that's not so important, because overall a business model is not just reasoning about costs and revenues. That's certainly the most interesting part, the part that might steer a conversation more. But the business model also it's about finding new opportunities in the way in which you collaborate. It's about explaining the value of circular technology in a more attractive way, and in a way that is more aligned with the benefits that the society is looking for. So there's much more than just cost consideration when I talk about business model and economic benefits. So I think the cost consideration are definitely important. They're not the only thing that plays a role in this.
Now, and if we talk about acceptance, we also talk about public acceptance, perhaps, maybe change behavior, things that are needed, etc. I mean, here we talk about economic benefits that are clearly related to industries, and so how is your view on the more public acceptance of these changes towards circularity? Are there public benefits of this circularity? Are they explained? What can a company do? Are there challenges?
Still me or anyone?
Yes, I mean, yeah, anybody can. Still, the floor is open to everybody. Just raise your hand or put something in the chat, and then you can be part of this discussion. But at the moment, I was just reacting to you, Julia. So if you can react to me again, that would be great.
And when you
there is a comment by Henry in the chat. So that also
great. Okay, that didn't come up. Where? Oh, here. Turn the question around. What is the cost of not doing it? We can't use linear thinking to determine if a solution that will keep business around for longer term, that otherwise will have to close down. Okay, that's a very good comment. Anybody? So that's one part of explaining it, but that's still business to business. So if we go to the social bit of public acceptance of the changes, is there anything that you would like to share about the challenges in that? Is there anything related to that in the project? Julia?
And when you mean public, you mean like people, society?
Yeah, citizens.
Yeah, so actually not really my part, because that's probably one of the limitations of the work that we have done, because in the discussion on the business model, we have been focusing on the project stakeholders, so on the companies, institutions involved in the project itself. So we haven't really found a way to integrate in our discussion the perspective of people and the benefit of people. But we are, one of the trends that I see in creating acceptance for circular business models or sustainability in general is indeed to bring it in the perspective of the final user or of the society. So how will a person benefit from in the short and especially in the long term from the acceptance and the embracing of these new technologies. And here it's very interesting, the comment that Henry made, because there the discussion is exactly not so much the what will be the benefits for future generation and for people in society, but what are actually the costs that the society is currently paying for not doing this. So in that particular perspective, so when we think about how to involve the societal perspective, then the type of thinking that Henry is suggesting is actually a very powerful way of framing it. So I would reconnect to that reflection there.
Okay, thank you. And of course, Henry, you can react again if you like, or also speak to this statement and your considerations related to it.
And I think Arjen Lettinga raised his hand again, or it's from previous. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he raised his hand again.
I see. Okay, Arjen.
Yes, I raised my hand again to maybe emphasize the fact that there are real people behind the screen listening to you guys. No, I was talking about social benefit to people, and maybe especially, let's say, employees of people that want to work. I don't know if it is a crucial differentiator, but I mean, every company is part of the so-called war on talent. So I think people that are entering the labor market are the younger generations are looking for, let's say, the more sustainable companies. And the more the younger generations will become aware of the concept of circular economy, they will make the next step and look for companies that are actually operating in the circular economy. So they might, favor companies that are applying those principles. So I think that is an actual social, could be and should be a social benefit regarding the circular economy.
Yes, I agree. And I'm trying to also see whether other people would like to react to this. But apparently it's very good that Kees is also having a look at that. Shall we go to a next statement to see what people think of that? Indeed, I've got a statement here about increasing acceptance. To increase acceptance of circular solutions, the business model should be prototyped from the beginning and developed collaboratively throughout a circular project. I will launch it now, and then you can agree or disagree with this statement. Well, I end the poll and we'll share the results, and the majority is agreeing with this and a few are disagreeing with this. Now, it would be great if the ones who are disagreeing would like to share why they disagree with this, because it sounds so good to start developing a business model from the beginning and involve the people in towards the circularity. So I'm looking at the participants, whether someone raises a hand or put in a chat. It's okay, yeah? We don't to contribute to this discussion is really appreciated. If you don't want to say why you disagree, then yeah, perhaps you can put it in into a chat, or perhaps you can share it with us later. talking about the acceptance of circular solutions, I think this statement is really also especially for the stakeholders again in this project. And then the statement was made to show how important a business model is. Julia, can you explain a bit what were the challenges that you came into in this respect with the stakeholders in Zero BRINE?
Yeah, so this statement is based on the type of work that we try to set up for Zero BRINE. So we were working on defining a business model, and we tried to have it to do it very collaboratively. So having like a prototype very early and using it for discussion with different stakeholders, and well. It didn't always get the traction that we wanted, and there were a lot of some obstacles were related to the fact that it seems that generally the technology dimension, so nailing the technologies and agreeing on the technology, seems to be regarded by many stakeholders as more important than discussing the business aspects. So there's generally a technology focus that drives these kind of projects, and technology takes kinds of technological development kinds of absorbs most of the energy. So it was the discussion about the economy, the business model was left on the side and only done when really pushed. Then there's always the issue of trust.
Am I the only one who cannot hear Julia anymore?
No, I also don't hear.
I lost her as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
What can everyone hear? Oh, no,
Yes,
Alex,
Now I can hear you again.
Where did I stop?
Well, just repeat your last sentence, please.
And that if I I probably got into the second obstacle that I found, which is the lack of reciprocal trust that stakeholders have, especially at the beginning of a project. So stakeholders come into this project with a firm-oriented mindset, so only focus on their own benefits and generally getting the most for themselves. So and don't tend to trust the others, so they tend not to share that easily their core interests and their core objectives. So understanding what everyone wants and putting that on the table, which is very, very important for having a discussion on the business model, didn't happen so early and so easily. So we really needed to have a few group workshop that didn't work, and then we moved to one-to-one conversations in order to try to better understand the stakeholders, and then back into plenary workshops to try to have this more open conversation. And then there's also the issue of which goes a bit on some points that that I think we will address later, into where we as a small team from a small faculty with not a lot of technology knowledge, the most powerful team, the most powerful stakeholder to push and to endorse an economic discussion. So sometimes the feeling was that we had such a small role and not being so technologically recognized that people wouldn't really listen to what we were saying, or wouldn't really recognize the value of what we were saying. So there's also an issue of who should lead this kind of discussion. So this is in a nutshell some of the challenges. I'm curious to hear whether others also have experience with this collaborative approach to a business model and have experienced similar challenges.
Yeah, the floor is open. This is a challenge to you. Who would like to share experiences on collaborating towards circularity, and what challenges there were? Either raise your hand or put something in the chat. I don't see any raised hands yet, but in a way, as a sort of reflection, you use the business model to increase trust, which is important in all aspects in collaboration. Gijsbert, would you like to say something about the assessments that you did, and there also you had to, well, monitor, evaluate that, and to what extent was that trusted?
Yeah, that's a good question. So these workshops that we now organize are also part of that, you could say, that project. The thing is, we have, of course, a lot of data on the systems that we study. We can calculate the environmental impacts and the social impacts from databases as well. But in the end, of course, we want to speak to real people. I like that comment that was already made. There's also real people, not only in this workshop, but also in these projects. And I think that is still a challenge, because we have already said a large part of this project is business to business, meaning that you talk of, let's say that there's discussions between professionals with professionals, and they all can see this as a good idea or not, and then they discuss that. But we still lack sometimes, although we have, of course, our own personal opinion as well. We're also having running households and having our own lives, but we still lack sometimes, let's say, the full understanding of what actually in the end will happen if this would be presented to society. So yeah, if you ask the question, was it trusted what we did? I think it was. We have presented it in several ways to scientific and non-scientific audiences. They accept the results and sometimes debate it, and then we can improve. But yeah, it is always, I think, a challenge if you ask in the end, did it really create more awareness on circularity? Yeah, in this particular project of Zero BRINE, since we have been working mostly with industries and in industries, yeah, that is also sometimes a bit far away. It would be different, of course, if we would talk about a product that directly would go into society and that is basically, well, that depends on the consumer's behavior. And then we, of course, could test and see how the product is accepted by, let's say, simply the people that buy it in a shop or not. And yeah, then we also must be honest to say that if you launch a product and it is more expensive, and there will be two products in the shop, one is made in a linear economy, one is made in circular economy, and the most expensive one is the one produced in a circular way, that only a part of the people will buy it, because that is something that we already know for years. There is, of course, a class that buys green products all the time, and that they like, and that they are aware of the fact that they want to have it. But there's also a large part of population and society that simply do not buy the most expensive product, so they always look for the cheapest one. And then, of
you
course,
say something, Gijsbert, I interrupt you, because you're actually saying buying actually a linear or a circular product. Is a circular product then always more green?
That's a good one. Okay, perhaps I have made that bridge. I crossed that bridge too quickly. Well, I think we pretend in our project that the circular output of this project is also green, because we also do environmental impact assessments on it. But yeah, I think it's not always the case. It could be that you have a circular product that is recycled and so on. In that sense, is circular, but is still made of a material that is not green in itself.
Mm-hmm. Or perhaps the processes are in such a way contributing to other issues, environmental issues or social issues, that it doesn't become as green as expected. So your work on analyzing those impacts is very important.
Certainly, yeah.
Right. And how crucial is that in the collaboration of setting up this change, this transition from linear to circular?
No, I think that yeah, and let's say I'm because I always want to be a transparent and honest person that discusses it, let's say with everything that matters here. So I'm saying that because I think that in Zero Brine we have done and tried our best to take into account environmental impacts, social impacts, and circularity impacts, and so on. But we must say that in some parts of the debate on circular economy, there's sometimes so much attention just for the circularity of the materials, then we forget about, for example, the carbon footprint and also of the energy consumption that might need for it. And then we've spent a lot of time on the energy consumption, and then we suddenly forget about the environmental impacts. So to do that really in a holistic approach is really a challenge. And in that sense, we were a bit blessed, perhaps, Zero Brine, that it is not a very difficult technology that we're talking about. It's about water flows and treatment of water flows and the recovery of a couple of minerals. But yeah, the more complex products are, also the more challenging it is to take into account all these different things and the environmental impact and the energy transition and so on. But yeah, I think it is really the challenge that just circularity is not the same as sustainability, and sustainability is not the same as a lower carbon footprint and so on. So we really have to look for different aspects of it and do that for, actually all products in our society. So that's really a major task.
Yeah, and it's good that that people are working on it, like you two indeed very much are. So we have so far established that if we want to go from linear to circular, we want to do that with the aim to become more sustainable, and sustainable in terms of economy, sustainable in terms of social sustainability, as well as environmental footprint. In order to do that, we need to increase awareness. That's where Ian's point was also about. But to do that, we also need to work together, because we need business models, and it's a challenge indeed to get these business models, because often they come as an afterthought after the technology. And then in creating those business models, it's a major aspect with the stakeholders of those business models that need to be different, of course, because of the circularity, is trust. And trust is an issue that then is important in everything, including also in the problem statement to start with. Are we really creating a greener product? Are we really creating a better solution for society? Now, when we talk about all this and having established that, who should be responsible in the case of this, better wastewater circular systems that you have been doing in Europe, in Zero Brine? Who's responsible for starting the change towards circularity? Is it the business? Is it the company? Is it the institution? Is it the TU Delft? Is it the citizen? Is it the policymaker? What do you think? Anybody can feel free to put something in the chat or to raise a hand. We have here from a few comments. First, is a circular product always more expensive? I think we have already a bit of an answer that, but is there something you would like to say to add to this, Gijsbert? Because you already answered it. It's not always the case. And Julia also answered that.
Although I'm still saying to my students that, let's say, no one can beat the linear economy that easy. It's a very efficient system. That's the reason why it's linear, by the way. So we need to do other interventions to make the circular economy really beneficial. I think that is something we have to accept, is that the linear system as we have it, and that has to do with upscaling factors and with global economy and so on. But nothing is as cheap as take it out of the ground, make a product out of it and burn it. That's simply, at this moment, the most cheap option. And we don't want to accept that because it's not sustainable. So we have to do extra interventions. And the extra interventions simply, in many cases, cost a little bit more than the very ugly linear system. But that is also that, and that means that we have to explain that the circular economy, as you, let's say, move from the linear economy, is perhaps more expensive. But in the end, and I think then also, well, perhaps also longer term comes into play, and also upscaling again. Circular economy projects are sometimes at this moment still in a niche. They have to become bigger. That in the longer term, the circular economy must be more cheap than the linear economy, because in the end you use less energy and less resources. But in the transition phase, we sometimes have to live with the fact that circular economy is a bit or even much more expensive, and then we have to find ways to deal with that.
Yeah, I always feel that time is an element here, because if indeed we don't care for our environment and we get problems because of that, they will probably cost more, as the World Bank calculated very well. So the isn't selling your product twice cheaper than burning it? Perhaps, and perhaps not is the answer. And then it's the cheapness is also part of the what do you calculate in the equation. So cases, it's cheap to take, make and dump, but because we do not have the full price of full impact in the dumping and destroying. So indeed, case, that is also what I was saying about this. Case also said that with all collaborative projects, all the individuals need to have a win. Question is, do they see the win? Is the win for tomorrow also a win that is felt today? And that perhaps is a question that relates to the awareness issue of what will it cost today and what will it cost tomorrow if we don't do it. And that's coming back to an earlier comment. Talking about trust and working together, Henry suggested to check again the Kallenburg Symbiosis, which has been around since 1972. So that's a good point also to take into account. Okay, from trust and awareness and costs back to responsibility. So who is responsible for starting, changing all this? Julia, what do you think?
I have different. I have different opinions here. Sometimes I think in general, especially to achieve a sort of win, a distributed win, let's say what Claes was saying, so to ensure that everyone has enough benefits from the collaboration, I'm inclined to say that a sort of third party should be the one promoting the business and economic benefit type of discussion. So I'm inclined to think about a particularly trained and policymaker, or nowadays we have third parties, consultancies, professionals specialized in facilitating collaborations that can help a group of people in coming together, sharing their interests, and really working to get developing this trust and a shared set of values that allows to move forward towards circularity goals. So my preference, based on my experience, is on a sort of third party. On the other hand, I know in the literature and in a lot of projects, there's this idea of the anchoring manufacturer, so of having a party that is has a strong economic interest in the project to lead the collaboration. So the owner of the main technology, the owner of a main component of a circular collaboration is regarded in the literature and in some projects as the one most suitable to steer the economic discussion. So different perspective there. I'm a believer of the third party steering role. Not sure if anyone wants to react.
Well, I will launch a new poll because that's related to it. The main tech on technology owner should take the lead in facilitating the business model, but also who should take the lead in facilitating the acceptance of circular technologies. And here you can fill in a choice. So you can indeed put your own perspective there.
Yeah, and again, there's a comment by Henry. Yeah, so that's,
yeah, I can see
might be,
that. Governments need to lead by implementing policies, taxes, and legislation that, one, shows direction where we want to go as society, and two, provide a framework that promotes circular economy solutions. And then those governments are voted for by citizens, and then citizens perhaps need to be aware of what is needed and how to do this in order to get government to take the lead. So we get a nice distribution of over the different people who should take the lead. I leave it open. 50% has participated now, so maybe a few more can put in their idea about who should take the lead in facilitating the acceptance of circular technologies. Two, one, end. Okay. Share the results. So here you filled in that that you agree or disagree that the main technology owner should take the lead. Anybody who would like to reflect on that question? If I can see anybody who raises a hand. I don't see anybody who raises a hand. So we continue then with who should take the lead. Okay, a technology owner, that's the same person probably, a policymaker, a business developer, or an external partner. That's an interesting one. Who should be the external partner? Who could that be? Is that the TU Delft? Or the University of Technology in New Delhi? Or is it Bill Gates? Or anybody has ideas on that? In fact, you know, Julia, is it different if it is a technology owner or a policymaker or an external partner who starts this process? Does that make a difference?
I don't have really research experience or I haven't done this comparison based on research, but I think it really so it really, the effect on the mindset and the trust is different, in my opinion, depending on who starts. So to really foster a collaboration, so and that is for me what is needed to make all this circular project work. Really, a lot of people sharing values and believing together in the project and the technology itself. To achieve this convergence of mindset, I still believe that having an external partner that is really a third party and it has the right skills to facilitate this emerging of a common goal really can give a different push to the project. The policymakers, it's going to push, it has a push effect, so we have to do it. So yeah, it's going to move things, but I'm not sure whether the mindset will really come, the right mindset and the right trust will really come along. So I think it depends on how how much we think that the reciprocal trust is important here. And I think a third party is more effective to achieve this trust.
Mm-hmm. So comment, the two countries that are at the forefront of circular economy are Finland and the Netherlands. The government involvement is a key, but of course not without involving other stakeholders is mentioned here in support of what you are saying. Indeed, if we look now about who's responsible, who should take that responsibility, we are actually agreeing that more actors could take such a responsibility, including policymakers, including industries, etc. Especially also it depends a bit on the market for circularity, whether consumers are directly involved and can vote in by buying or not buying that solution. And in this case, when it's business to business, it could be a technology owner who wants to change towards a circularity that can start a business model and then can discuss that business model, or it can be started by legislation set by government. That's what we say, right? Okay, I have one last statement that I would like to share with you, and where I ask your votes for.
I just
Gijsbert.
want, yeah, I just want to share a quick thought here. Also mentioned in the last session, but well, most of the people were not here in the last in the first workshop, because I think we. So on one hand, I can agree a bit by saying that technology should take the lead in terms of that technology is key. If you would try to do circular economy without understanding or without knowledge of the technology, I think at this moment it would not be smart. It could be perhaps later if things are more established, but at this moment you need, many cases, you need a very fundamental understanding of problems with materials, problems with technology, problems with energy. So technology is key. But I disagree also with the statement a bit, is in terms of saying only the technology owner can do it. I think also other parties can do it, but they need an understanding of the technology. And you also needed an understanding of the other things as well. So that makes actually both the policymakers and the business developers and the external partners, whatever that might mean, but that makes them all qualified for leading that. Because in the end, and I think that's also the comment I wanted to share here, in the end, it's also about the personality of the facilitator as well. So you see that real champions that can lead the project, that are enthusiastic, that can motivate people, that are sometimes really, well, that's basically the key of the success, not only the knowledge or the education they might have had or the expertise, but really basically the quality, the qualification to lead the team and to organize that. And that's perhaps even more important than anything of what is on the list.
That's a nice comment. Thank you, Gijsbert. Is there anybody who would like to react on that? Then raise your hand or put something in the chat. At the end, collaboration across all private and public sectors is key to success. Okay.
Yep.
I'm launching the last poll question. So you can either agree or disagree with circular business models should also be examples of responsible and sustainable innovation and take societal acceptance into account from the start, together with the environmental and socio-economic impacts. I mean, after the discussion, it's almost a rhetoric question, right? So, but I also know, and I will end the poll and share the results. Everybody's agreeing, so that's a great success. I stopped sharing because this is the introduction for Julia to give a few more thoughts on the project Zero BRINE and her lessons from that and how to organize these circular business models. Julia, can I ask you to present that?
Yes, I just requested control. Oops, oh, I clicked something wrong. Yes, okay. So I think many of the thoughts that I wanted to share now I have already shared, but maybe this is, I'm going to do a brief summary of what we did and the learnings that we had. As I said before, I was part of a team that took care of developing the business model for one of the demonstrators of this project. So for the case of the Rotterdam, of the port of Rotterdam. And the idea behind our role was to use the discussion around the business model to steer acceptance. So by using a stakeholder-centered approach in defining the business model, we try to put on the table all the different interests in a gradual way, and try to solve the issues that were there between these stakeholders, and try to move forward in finding new opportunities for collaboration. So a collaborative approach worked really well, and and that is what a team like the one that I was part of can offer. So I'm part of the industrial design engineering faculty at TU Delft. So the professionals that work together with, I have a management background, and my team is a mix of people with a management background and a design background. And so what we brought to the table is knowledge of business knowledge and what makes a successful business model, and facilitation skills, because maybe many of you know design for the ability to make great products that are appealing and that are functional, but actually designers also bring on the table a lot of other skills, including a deep understanding of people and their needs. So a set of tools that allow for a deeper understanding of the drivers and the interests of people, and a lot of facilitation skills. So a lot of tools and ways of facilitating honest, trustworthy, and spontaneous conversation, which are generally led by a prototype. So designers are also very quick in making something very tangible, like in our case, a business model, so that everyone could understand what we were talking about, and more easily give feedback and share their own perspective. So we used an approach that was, as I already said, very collaborative, centered on collaboration, co-design of the business model, and an experimentation approach, in the sense that we try to prototype very quickly, trigger reactions, and based on those reactions, come up with a new prototype of the business model to evaluate and further come up with reactions. And just a little bit, just a clarification of what we mean with business model. The business model is not just the business case, which is just the value capture part of a business model. So the business model discussion was not just around the cost and revenues of this technology, but it's a broader discussion which involves the value proposition. So what is the core of the technology? What is the core benefit that is bringing to whom? How the different, and it's also about a discussion about how the different partners should work together. What are the synergies between the different partners in order to deliver this value proposition, and how should this consortium reach their clients in the most effective way to get the benefits at their most. So it was a much broader discussion than just cost and benefits. And this is the tool that we developed for this project. Is a circular business model canvas that with a set of questions that go together with it, and a set of creative activities that allow to fill in this canvas, and then at the end come up with a description of a possible circular business model. So I'm going to skip some of the slides because there's no time, but to get through this co-creative approach and through this experimental approach, we came up to a first version of the zero brine business model. And what we figured out is actually that this wouldn't work in this first version. So in the port of Rotterdam, as it is, the technology will not really, the business model is not really appealing at the moment. But through this collaborative discussion, we also learned and had managed to come to a very detailed overview of why this would not work in terms of very specific barriers that were in between the actual acceptance of the circular technology and its actual implementation. So this discussion led us to a much more granular understanding of the different stakeholders and what kind of very specific barriers they had. And these are related to the technology itself, to the culture, so to the lack of trust, to the economic aspects, and to the lack of supportive legislation. Why is this important? Because thanks to this more detailed understanding of each stakeholder that came only towards the end, we were able to move the conversation forward and to overcome some of these barriers by putting on the table some new directions for business models. So all these barriers that would have possibly killed the collaboration, putting them on the table had the beneficial effect of stimulating a more thorough discussion, which is now leading to exploring new opportunities for business models and moving this collaboration further instead of closing, of stopping it. So some lessons that we learned through this approach for achieving acceptance are, through this approach, even if things don't work from the beginning and throughout a lot of the steps of the project, you still can learn something and let new opportunities to emerge. So by fostering this way of working, the collaboration keeps growing and partners keep getting to know each other better and better. And we actually discovered that the discussion was too much focused on technology. So we discovered that one of the weaknesses of the Port of Rotterdam, of the Rotterdam case, was too much focus on the technology from the beginning, and that probably a broader perspective and a broader consideration of business aspects and perhaps also social aspects from the very beginning would have been more beneficial to move this project forward. We had evidence that the business model discussion is actually useful and that should have probably been incorporated even from before the start of the project. So it's something that also in the research stage, when the technology and the partner were put together, maybe start thinking already there at that moment about business implications would have been very, very useful. And we also figured out that it is useful if a third party, so if in TU Delft faculty maybe is not so involved into the technology, can play a role in steering this discussion. Perhaps that is an effective way of keeping this discussion going and helping stakeholders to put their interest on the table. So being the external player, the third player, had a very important effect in having a more honest answer and having a broader disclosure from the other stakeholders. I'm not sure whether this is impactful, but at least what we brought on the table is a deeper knowledge of the different parties and a sort of more open mind to collaboration. And this is what I want to briefly share. I think everything has been already discussed before, but if you still have questions or want to know more about this approach, probably there's still time for some questions.
There sure is. So anybody who has a question can raise a hand or put something in the chat. If not, then I would like to thank you very much, both Julia and Gijsbert, for contributing to this panel discussion. And I also would like to thank all the participants for their inputs in the comments. So we we've learned quite a bit in terms of how to go from linear to circular, what things matter, why trust is important, why it is interesting to think about the responsibility. Perhaps we need champions, we need to identify champions, but certainly in a way we need all stakeholders to do their bit in trying to make the world a better place. Kees, the floor is yours for the closure.
Yeah, thank you. And there's still one question. Will the presentations be available after the webinar? We had some slides, especially concluding slides from Julia and introduction slides from Gijsbert.
They will be made available.
So that's the answer. Thanks, Danielle from Revolve. And I also placed a link in the chat for the final Zero BRINE forum, which is on the 2nd and the 4th of November in Amsterdam and Delft, and can also be attended digitally. And Julia and Gijsbert also have shared their email addresses in the chat, so also feel free to have direct interactions with them. Yeah, with that, Patricia, thank you as well. You thanked already the audience and our panelists, but thank you as well for hosting the discussion and trying to get everyone involved and to support the interaction. With that, I also would like to thank Revolve for the behind the screen technicalities and support. And with that, I think we can end today's session and discussion. Still a lot needs to be done to reach circularity and to get it all accepted by the different parties, and also to have circular systems that are in the end sustainable and green and everything included social responsibility. That's still quite a big challenge, so we all need to work on that. So that's also something we really should do. With that, thank you for your attention and your presence. Have a nice afternoon or day, wherever you are, and see you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.